Okay, so with the content that you see up here, a lot of this is a review. This compound doesn't exist. There is no such thing because it can't bond there. Okay, so there's only one up there that we have not talked about yet. And which one might that be? To the end that way. Yes, that is correct. So what is it about that compound? Does it have a common name? Yes, it does. Okay. So from prior knowledge, we know that this does not have a common name. This was nitrobenzene. Okay. This one was bromobenzene. See this purple markers maybe just about had it. I think hopefully it still shows up all right. So let me see if I got a different one. Okay, and then this one's got a common name. It's called phenol. I think it's a little darker. And then this one's the one we spent the most time on, and this was, again, if I could spell it right, toluene. Okay, and then this one is what we call aniline, or aminobenzene, but I think for all practical purposes, we'll still refer to that as just aniline. All right, and I think where we left off with yesterday was talking about those shortcut methods we could take, okay? And we'll refresh your memory on that in just a moment here. Okay, I just want to do, I believe, just one slide, and we'll come back to this. Okay, because I think, and we've talked about this before, it's best to take this in a nice slow progression rather than sending all this information out all at once and then having to backtrack again. Although maybe it seems like we're doing that. You know, maybe it's kind of like, feel like you're playing ping pong, but if you're fast enough, you could probably play ping pong with yourself, kind of like the Flash. Doink, 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 doink. See? Zoom, 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 zoom.
Maybe we should redo that. One more time.
Why is that?
We need another demonstration.
Well, why is that?
Try it later. Yeah.
Like, oh, you needed the visual effects. Zoom! 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 Is that better?
Now we're going to go watch it on YouTube. Yeah.
Why would you do that? Okay? So, and this is where we left off with yesterday, okay? And these go in the same order that you see them. In ortho designation is 1, 2. Meta is 1, 3. And then pair is 1, 4. This is the only one that it's straight across from one another. Okay? For instance, if this is at 12 o'clock, that can be at 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock. This is at 12 o'clock, it can be at 4 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Now, we've seen that yesterday, but maybe some of you aren't quite the same visual learners as what other people maybe are, and that's okay. We'll make sense of that here in just a moment. Okay? Because behind this screen, we've got both monosubstituted benzene rings and we illustrated one example of a dye substituted. It's not up there now, but we did that yesterday. Okay? So the examples that we'll show you here in just a moment are right here. Okay? And the examples that you're going to see, okay, will only work if there's two derivatives on there. Once you start putting 3 or 4, this type of designation, this meta and para type of abbreviations, it just does not work. It only works if there's 2 on there. And it also only, well, yeah, it still works if it's a mono-substituted, like chlorobenzene, or we saw nitrobenzene as well. Those can be dye-substituted rings as well. And I think that's where we wanted to stop with that. Yes, because next week is when we start the reactions with that. And what we mean by that is as follows. It's talking about, okay, reactions of aromatic compounds. That's when we want to make sure that you've got that flow chart. It's got that benzene ring in the middle, and it shoots out in all directions. Okay? And you utilize that kind of like what you would with that periodic table. It's a way to navigate what's actually happening, and it's meant to be used as a tool. Okay? All right, so we want to talk about some of these behind the board. Okay, so you can go ahead and pick any one of these, because as you can see, these are all mono-substituted benzene rings, okay, because there's only one derivative on there. Okay. Should we put another one on there, then you get your dye substitution, and you can use that abbreviation. So, what I want you to do is pick a number between 1 and 5.
3.
Okay? And with that, here we go. Go ahead and pick a halogen. You just need to pick a halogen. Does anyone remember where the halogens are? Would it surprise you to know that this is a halogen?
Chlorine.
Yeah, chlorine's also a halogen because they're all in the same column, column 7. So is that what you want to go with? Okay, so we picked the number 3. Okay, so as it stands right now, we've got bromobenzene. And I guess I don't need to use that purple marker again. We can, let's use this one. Okay, so what we'll do, we can keep this in the same spot. All right. Would it be better if you gave a letter designation? O, M, or P? You pick. M, okay? So according to yesterday, all right, we had this up here. That should look a little better than that. Okay. So you picked M. Okay, we had X marks the spot, okay? But in this case, we're going to rotate this over here to help you out. So we wrote this down yesterday, so here's our X. So in this designation, there's 2 spots where a meta designation can go. And it's 2 away, all right? So now I want you to pick left or right. Okay, so 2 spots away, you point to the left, okay, so 1 and 2, and we'll do the same thing here, 1, 2, and we're putting a chlorine on there. All right, so now what you can do This does not have a common name. Only this one and this one and this one have common names. Otherwise, as you can see, these both have benzene behind them because there is no common name for halogen substitutions or nitro group substitutions. Now, that might be hard to grasp, but just remember, there are only 4 of them that have common names. Okay? Toluene, phenol, aniline, and benzoic acid. This just means you have a COOH on there. All right, so here we're going to start in alphabetical order, and we're going to give this the priority because B starts before C. So since you wanted a letter abbreviation, which is fine, okay, we can say M for meta, and that's where this one is, meta-chloral. Oh, that's not right. Sorry. I just start over with that. No, that only works if you have common names. I'm sorry. You still have to start in alphabetical order. We got 1-bromo, -3-chloral, benzene. Okay, I'll explain what that means here shortly. Okay, I should have had you start with one of the common names. Okay, so B starts before C, that's correct, but we need to name both of them because this isn't a common name. I had that flip-flopped. Now pick one of those that has a common name. So it's either 2, 4, or 5, providing there's no questions on this one. Okay. Pick a number if there's 2. Okay. Are we good with this one? Okay, we'll leave that up there. Okay, so number 2. All right. So that does have a common name. Now, do you want to do meta again, ortho position, or para position? Okay, we can do that meta position then, which again is 2 spots away. So 1, 2, or 1, 2. You want to go left or right? Okay, so 2 spots away. We'll just keep it simple. We'll do that chlorine again. Now we can do this as meta-chloral aniline. Okay, because you're already designated this as number 1 when you call it the common name. Because if you don't, then it gets to be a little more tricky. Then you're going to name this as an amino group instead, and there it gets to be a lot more confusing. In other words, what you would have to do is this: 1-amino -3-chloral benzene. Okay, so which one in your estimation looks like it's easier to deal with? Probably the top one. That's why we say it's better to know these as the common names. It makes it much easier. So, if this is a meta position, does this make sense? So it's 2 spots away. Here, or we could have put it down there. It would mean the exact same thing, just as long as it's 2 spots away. All right. Right. So now you say O or P now. Okay? So according to that paper that we referred back to, okay, where it said 1, 2, we said the 1 is at 12 o'clock. The 2 can either be at 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock. Okay? Which means it's 1 spot away then. Okay? So now, again, you want to say left or right. Okay? So 1 spot away here means we're putting it down here. Now, the only thing you would have to change in this designation here is just this letter. This is no longer a meta position to this common name, but rather what instead. That's why we said you got to pick this letter or this one. And what did we pick? The O for ortho position. So now the only thing you have to change, orthochloroaniline. That's it. Otherwise, if you do this one, okay, well then you would still say aniline here, 1-amino 2-chloroaniline, because it's, again, one place away. But you were all in agreement that you thought that this is much easier. And I would agree. The common names are much, much easier. Or I suppose if you wanted to, you could also say this, 2-chloroaniline. But to me, this designation is much, much easier. Okay? But we are in agreement that the common name is the easiest. That is what would be best for you. So therefore, we can get rid of this one. Okay? Now when you get it down to here, you like the top or the bottom better for writing this? I would say probably the top is much easier, so therefore we can erase that one. Okay? So now, if we do that last designation, where would we have to move that chlorine? Because remember, it said 1, 2, 1, 3, and then para position is 1, someone, I didn't hear who had, 1, 4, which means it's straight across from one another. Doesn't matter which way you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Put them down there. That is parachloroaniline now. So that abbreviation is much, much easier to deal with when you got those common names. So remember, the only time you can use this is when you've got this guy, this one, or that benzoic acid, because those are common names. Left side, are we good? Middle? Right side? This is why we talked about this. And maybe, even though this is difficult, I won't say that it's interesting, but maybe we like the challenge. It's kind of like when you're going to a volleyball match, do you want to face someone like maybe a bigger school like Madison, or play Chester again, or do you like that where there's a little bit of a challenge? You just like walking in and you got a pretty good idea, as long as you play well, 3-0, we're going to be out of there. You like to challenge a little bit? I don't know if that would go with classroom material. That might be a little bit of a stretch. Maybe. I don't know. All right. So I want you to pick phenol or toluene. Okay. So the choice was toluene. Okay. So we already know that we've got this common name up here. How would we draw meta-iodotoluene? Well, we already know that it's a benzene. You might think that. Yeah. You keep laughing at my drawings. I'm going to start putting octagons and nonagons and a decagon on. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, sorry.
They put CH3.
Now, when you have to draw these, okay, when you're going backwards, rather than seeing the structure and you're naming it, now you've got the name and you got to draw it. I would highly, highly, highly suggest that you put, if this is going to be toluene, what type of derivative is on there? Yeah, and it's a methyl group. Where do you think is the best place to put that? At the very top, at 12 o'clock. I would highly suggest you do that every time because it's going to make it the easiest. Okay? So CH3 is up top. Now we've got our toluene. You say that? I or you? I, you, I, what? What? You?
I.
There's no I here. Oh, there is there, yes. Okay. So 2 spots away. Now you got the toughest decision. Left or right?
I don't know, you surprise us.
Okay? Because like you said, 2 spots away. You could also put it over there. Both of them would be meta-iodotoluene. Okay? Okay? And then finally, last thing we'll do. Are you getting good at drawing these 6-sided figures? All right. Would that be a little difficult? We're not going to name it, but would that be simple to do? Maybe in a week or two. The only simple thing about this up to this point would be what? Where could you start at? I mean, look at your key up top.
Would it be phenol?
Yes, it is a phenol group. That's probably the easiest thing that you could recognize. But can we do this ortho and para and meta naming? You're shaking your head. No, that is correct. True. But there's a better explanation. You're getting closer. This is where your teammates can help pick you up.
Because you like have one and one's under.
You're getting closer. Again, this is where your teammates can help pick us up.
Is it because you have one and one of those like starting things? Like, so you have like.
Notice, okay, when you put the two things together, what you had said, and you're pointing at, and that's correct. How many derivatives are on this ring? It depends how you state it. 'Cause, yeah, if it's toluene, then yes, you've got 1 on there. Okay? And you correctly said if this is phenol, okay, that means, yes, we've got him on there, but notice how many other derivatives. Yeah, you can only have 2 derivatives on there, or just 1 more than the common name. This one's got 2 on there, so that you couldn't call this, say, well, the C comes before the N, and we're going to call that orthochloral 3-nitrophenol. That's not going to cut it, no. You would have to, you can still call this a phenol, we just have to put them in alphabetical order. All right, and we'll start with that on Monday. All right. We confused? I'm maybe when you saw that X and then that diagram we had up yesterday, that might have been a little confusing. Okay? So again, wrap yourself around that this is pretty tough stuff. Okay? And having this coursework behind you before you have to take in college, I would like to think is going to be a great advantage for some of you or some of, if it's more than, I don't know. If some of you said we just want to keep our options open, that's great. So regardless, we'll catch up to you on Monday.